Well, hello everyone. This is the last week of our series that we've been doing for about 6 weeks now of sayings that Jesus said. It's not the last thing that Jesus said, it's just the last thing that we're going to talk about in this little series. Now, some of the sayings we've looked at, if you've been here or if you've caught up on YouTube, some of them have been a bit trickier to understand. When we first hear them, we perhaps didn't know what they meant. I didn't know what some of them meant, like go out like sheep among wolves. I was like, I'm glad Amber's got that one to talk about and not me. Or last week's render to Caesar what is Caesar's. And some of them were a bit harder to understand, and hopefully unpacking them, we've got our head around a little bit of what Jesus would have meant. But today's saying is very famous. Lots of people know it, and it's very easy to understand. But sometimes it's the words of Jesus that are easy to understand that we often struggle with doing the most. So these words of Jesus are often called the golden rule. They're really easy to understand, can't really mean anything other than what it says on the tin. But easy to understand isn't always easy to do, is it? And you know, the world would be a very different place, and in fact, heaven would come on earth if everyone was able to live out these simple words. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. Everybody's heard that saying before, yeah? Fairly easy to understand in the English, with a basic grasp of the English language. Do to others as you would have them do to you, but not very easy to do always. So we're going to look at Luke chapter 6. I'm going to read it first. I might interrupt myself as I go, starting. I don't know what's going on with this sound. It's getting fixed tomorrow, hopefully. All my hopes are hanging on that. Luke 6, verse 27. But to you who are listening, so I think that's a good opener from Jesus there. I'm already interrupting myself because he knows that we kind of stop listening when we don't like what's about to be said. You know, like when I'm talking to my children, they don't really want to hear what I'm saying. They're definitely not listening. Although they can hear, they just ignore. So Jesus is saying to you who are listening, so are we listening today? Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. So the first thing he says is, are you listening? So unblock your ears, listen to what I'm saying. And what he's saying is something we don't like to hear, which is love your enemies. And then in case we're unsure what he means by that, in case you're thinking, well, must have misheard, he clarifies it by saying, do good to those who hate you. So that's what it means to love your enemies. It means we do good to them. Bless those who curse you, so we bless them. Pray for those who mistreat you. So if you're still unsure what it means to love your enemies, here we go. You've got a little list there. You have to do good to them, you have to bless them, you have to pray for them. If someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them. Give to everyone who asks of you, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. So we've got a whole list here of what it means to love our enemies. So we've got to bless, we've got to be good, we've got to be generous towards them, we've got to pray for them. We have to do to them as we would have them do to us. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. But love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because He is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. So be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. You know what really stood out to me from that passage, apart from all the challenge, is be kind and merciful, just like your Heavenly Father. Don't judge, reaping and sowing. The same measure you use will be used back to you. So we're going to have a look at this golden rule, do to others as you would have them do to you, and think about how we can apply it to ourselves. So for those of us listening, it's very simple to understand, but for all of us, listening or otherwise, it can be very difficult to put into practice. And I just want to make clear before we get into it and we talk about loving our enemies, that this passage has been taken out of context and used in a horrible way to abuse and hurt people in the past. And that's not what Jesus means when he tells us to love our enemies. So I'm not going to go on about it a lot, but this doesn't mean if you're in a dangerous or harmful situation where you're not being treated well, you're not being loved, if you're in an abusive relationship and you're not safe, that's not good, and it's not a place where God wants you to stay, to love your enemies. And if anyone wants to talk about that or needs help, please do speak to me or a friend that you're with today, because we have to understand Jesus' words in this wider ethical framework of the way he's telling us to live. It's about Christ followers living differently in this broken, sinful world, bringing heaven to earth by the way we interact with other people. And we do that from a place of freedom and from a place of knowing our worth in God and knowing how much he loves us and what he's called us to do. And we don't do it from being trapped in a dangerous place. So that's just like an aside. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page when we talk about what it means to love our enemies. So sometimes our default response in life to how we treat people in our family, those around us, those when we head to the shops, when we're in the schoolroom, when we're in work, can be the opposite of the golden rule. I'm going to go through a few ways we can treat people. There's number one, treat others worse than they treat you. Anybody ever seen that in action? I have. Sometimes on very odd and rare occasions in my house where there occurs sibling conflict amongst my 3 children. Probably once every decade or so, not once every 10 minutes or so. You can guarantee there will be what is a childish response we can see from the outside, but I will inevitably hear the words in some sort of rare argument that occurs, but first she did, or he did, but he pushed me, so I hit him, so she took my, so then he did. And we get this cycle of retaliation where someone has wronged us, and that's not good, and our response is to do something worse back to them. And all that does is create conflict that cycles round and round and escalates and escalates. So she took my jumper, he threw my toy. Childish, yeah? But we see that in our own lives and in the way we sometimes treat other people. It can easily creep into the way we drive, for example. He cut in front of me, so I'm going to show him who's boss. I'm going to accelerate, get ahead, slam my brakes on. Is that just me? No. They left my message on red. Didn't reply for about 6 hours. Next time they message me, I'm not even going to read it. I didn't like the way she spoke to me, so I'm going to ignore her. I'm going to blank her from now on. And sometimes we can look at our relationships, our friendships, the way we treat people in the shops, and we might realise that actually we're an escalator of issues. I had an incident on an escalator the other day. I tried to go down the up board, and was it the other way around? I don't know. Had to be rescued by a security guard falling over. Anyway, I've got spatial awareness issues. But we don't want to be an escalator of issues. If you treat people worse than they treat you, all it does is create a cycle of conflict that can never resolve. And in the Old Testament, the law was given an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And that was to stop this escalation of violence. It was so you couldn't say, he stole my sheaf of barley, so I'm going to kill his cow, kind of thing. It was to make sure that the punishment fit the crime, that it wasn't just a cycle of retributive justice that just didn't make any sense and everybody just did worse to the person before them. But then Jesus comes and he says to you, you have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, don't resist the one who is evil. If anyone slaps you on one cheek, turn to him the other. And then, as Luke records it, as we've read here, he says, do to others as you would have them do to you. So don't just do like for like. Don't make it worse, but do to others as you would have them do to you. So in our relationships, we don't want to create kind of cycles of revenge in how we deal with other people. Instead, we're called to live to this kind of new ethical framework that treats others in the way we ourselves would like to be treated, even if that never happens, even if we never receive that same kind of treatment back. So the other way we can treat people worse. The other thing we can do is treat other people the same way they treat us. We can treat others the same way, and you know what that does? It just cements conflict. We just reciprocate what we've received, and it just says things are always going to be this way. This is permanent. This is what our relationship looks like. She's always rude to me. I'm always going to be rude back to her. They always take me for granted, so I'm not going to do anything for them anymore. They never remember my birthday, so I'm going to stop saying happy birthday to them. You know, the relationship with that person will never improve. It will never change if we only reciprocate the behaviour that we receive. Jesus didn't say, if someone takes your coat, take their coat also. You know, you might be cold, so if someone takes your coat, you better grab a hold of theirs. He said, if someone takes your coat, give them your shirt as well. In fact, he said, if we only treat people the way that they treat us, we're just like everybody else. Even the sinners do that. Even the sinners can lend to someone and get repaid. Even the sinners can be generous and get the thing back. Even sinners can be good to those who are good to them. But as Christ followers, can we be good to those who are not so good to us? Because that's what it means to live like kingdom people, like called out ones. We go beyond just treating others in the same way they treat us. And actually, we follow this golden rule. So we've covered how we can treat people worse than they treat us, which is not a good way to be. Last night there were some unheard of arguments in my house going on between the children. I was going, everyone be quiet and stop arguing. I'm trying to write a preach about how we need to treat others, how we'd like to be treated. There was some arguing about who got to make a Christmas puppet sewing thing. Why did they not just provide a sewing kit with 3 puppets that are all the same? There had to be 3 different ones, and everybody wanted the penguin, and it descended into hell. I mean, just 10 minutes of Wickman family chaos, but we're back on board now. So we've got treat other people worse than you want to be treated. You've got treat other people the same way they treat you, and that never makes any progress. It just cements conflict. Then we've got treat others as you imagine they deserve to be treated. And you know, we often talk about putting yourself in other people's shoes, and there's something to be said for that. You imagine how they might feel, how you might be able to treat them, that would help them. But you know, if you actually were to walk around in someone else's shoes, even if they were the right size, you never really get quite the same fit as when you've had a new pair of shoes, do you? When we try to imagine what other people deserve or how they deserve to be treated, what we're really doing is making ourselves the judge. We're saying, well, that person doesn't really deserve help because they shouldn't have done X, Y, Z. And if I was in their shoes, I would have spent the money differently, or I would have saved some of it, or I wouldn't have reacted like that. Really, if you're going to do that, you've brought it back on yourself. And you know, that's certainly a problem of their own making. We make ourselves judge, jury, executioner, and decide how the other person deserves to be treated. Is that person worthy of our generosity? Are they worthy of our kindness? Yes or no? We put ourselves in their uncomfy shoes for a moment, and we decide, shall they be forgiven? Are they worthy of forgiveness? Shall I give them another chances? Shall I be kind to them? Yes or no? And we decide who we want to impress and who we're less bothered by. But Jesus says, do not judge, and you will not be judged. With the same measure you use, it will be measured back to you. So he doesn't tell us, treat other people in the way you imagine they deserve to be treated. It's much simpler than that. We don't have to wear other people's shoes. We don't have to imagine we're somebody else. We don't have to decide what other people do or don't deserve. It's simply this. Treat other people in the way you want to be treated. You don't have to imagine as somebody else. You don't have to plot revenge. You don't have to snatch somebody's coat back off them. Just think, if this was me, I'm me, how would I like to be treated? How would I like to be spoken to? How would I like to be dealt with? How would I like to be forgiven? How would I like to be helped? How would I like to be enabled? In the Greek that Jesus' words are originally recorded in, it literally says, as you desire that people should do to you, do to them likewise. As you desire. What do you desire? In other words, they could have never once spoken a kind word to you. But if you desire that they would, speak kindly first. In the workplace, if you're responsible for others, how would you like to be spoken to or managed if you made a mistake? If you work alongside others, what kind of person do you desire to work alongside? If you have a husband or wife, how do you desire to be treated. Sometimes, once a week on Pocket Money Day, my children tidy their own bedrooms after a small amount of nagging. And on other days of the week, I tidy their bedrooms. Why? Because I want to treat them in the way I would like to be treated. I would like to come home and have my clean clothes folded, washed and put away. I'd like to come home and have my bed made, and thankfully I'm married to a husband who is a neat freak, so I do, and that is good for me. But you know, sometimes in life, not everything has to be about teaching somebody a lesson. Sometimes we can just be kind, because it's a nice thing to do, to treat other people in the way we would like to be treated. I wonder how we would treat people in need, people less fortunate than ourselves. I wonder how we would treat asylum seekers if we just stopped trying to imagine ourselves in their shoes and simply just said, how would I desire to be treated? How do I desire to be treated? I wonder how our politics would look if we stopped thinking as people as other and simply thought, how would I like to be treated in that circumstance? I think we'd have different politics, different education systems, changed neighbourhoods, safe communities, if everyone lived out this golden rule that said, first, how do I desire to be treated? And we interacted with those around us in that way, in our parenting, in our work life, in our marriages, in our friendships, in our businesses, in our finances, in how we use our time. Am I treating others in the way I desire to be treated? And you know, the heart of God is so clearly expressed by this golden rule, because it's grace, a gift we don't deserve. When we treat others in the way we would like to be treated, very often they are not, in our humble opinion, worthy of that treatment. They don't deserve it. They haven't earned it. And that's the wonderful grace that we get to walk in every day. We have a God who hasn't treated us in the way that we deserve. He hasn't paid back evil for evil. He hasn't treated us the way that we treat him. But he has shown us extraordinary grace in loving us, in choosing us, in forgiving us, in all the goodness that he shows to us through our lives. And he says to us, now go and do likewise. Those who are listening, treat others as you desire to be treated. So before you speak, before you shout, before you reply to that email, before you drive, before you go to the shops this Christmas, especially if you have to go to Meadowhall, just think, how would I like to be treated? How would I desire to be treated? We don't want to treat people worse than they treat us. We don't want to be known for snapping back at people or enabling these cycles of revenge. We don't want to treat other people the same way they treat us. That's not going to help anything grow or change. It's just going to keep things the way they are. We don't want to have to imagine ourselves as the other person and be the one who gets to decide if they are worthy of a kind reply or not. We simply have to ask, how do I desire to be treated? And try to live that out. And it is a lot more tricky to do than it sounds. And that's the way God has dealt with us, each and every one of us. That he's given us this incredible life, this incredible freedom, this incredible love when we didn't deserve it. And that can be really hard, because each one of us, I'm not saying that I have this all together, each one of us has that natural tendency to think that person is different from me, other than me, doesn't deserve, shouldn't have done, shouldn't be that way, could have made a different choice. But God is calling us not to judge, but to treat other people in the way we would like to be treated. How do I desire to be treated? Treat others as you want to be treated.